Hi, this is Naveen Andrews, and you're listening to the official Lost podcast hosted by ABC.com.
In this podcast, Naveen Andrews sits down with us to talk about Arabic in English and enlightens us on corpsing, which sounds like something that involves the fabled 7th season of Lost, but it's not. We'll let him explain. Speaking of corpsing, executive producers Damon Lindolf and Carlton Hughes will also join us to discuss last week's shocking episode. And they'll be talking about this week's enigmatic episode, Question Mark, which airs Wednesday, May 10th from 9 to 10 p.m. only on ABC.
Almost 40 days ago on this very island, I tied a man to a tree and I tortured him. I tortured him as I've tortured many men. Men whose voices I still hear in the night. Should you kill me? Maybe you should. Maybe you were meant to.
Naveen Andrews has found himself in the desert many times, first in his breakout role from The English Patient, and most recently in the remake of the biblical epic The Ten Commandments. However, it's his role as a former Iraqi soldier, Saeed Jarrah, that's broken down the most cultural barriers, and gained him quite a following in the process.
Well, it's completely unheard of. I, for one, have never seen an Iraqi character, let alone one from the Republican Guard, as a main character on network TV or even in Hollywood generally. And being fair to America, for the rest of Europe, it just never happens. Especially a character of almost heroic dimensions. One that's also been seen to be romantic. It just doesn't happen. And I have to give credit where it's due, that JJ, Brian and Damon had the courage to actually put this character forth, because when I first saw the first script, I couldn't believe it, really, and I still can't. Long may it last.
What you made me do, no human being should ever have to do to another.
بس واحد من الهليان رأيكم في شي تعرفوا وهسا تعرفوا.
I will never do that again.
Arabic was really hard. What makes it complex is that there's classical Arabic and there's the Arabic that people speak in various regions of the Middle East, and everyone's got a different idea about how you should speak colloquially. The Syrians have a different idea, Egyptians have a different idea, and when we were actually shooting scenes, some of my fellow actors were either Syrians or Egyptians, so it could get quite confusing, and sometimes we wouldn't have what would be deemed authentic Arabic as spoken by an Iraqi until we did the ADR. I would say that was true of the recent episode. It was like right until the very end. It wasn't quite there. But I mean, what can you do? You just do the best you can.
For Naveen, the toughest scenes to shoot weren't those in Arabic, but those final raw moments with Shannon, played by actress Maggie Grace.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
It was very tough because actors, much as it might surprise anyone, do have feelings. And, we'd kind of known that Maggie was going to leave the show maybe about, I think, 3 months before it actually happened. So it was this long build up to that, and it was hard. It was really tough because you build relationships and you have a lot of affection for people, and it seems so brutal, when their tenure, if you like, is suddenly cancelled. So that last scene was very tough for lots of reasons because it was very hard for her, and and I was aware of that, and apart from it being very sad, it was a difficult episode as well to shoot because it was very emotional, and again, when you're working with directors who are coming from the outside, it can be a bit difficult, but we got through it. We got through it, and I think it's a good piece of work, and it was a great way for her to go out if she had to go out. Yeah, it was tough.
The emotional work required for the show definitely takes its toll, especially with 15-hour days. That can only result in one thing: corpsing.
There have been so many good times, that we've had as a cast, just having a laugh, I particularly like corpsing. I guess it's an English theatrical term, but in England, basically when you cannot stop laughing, when you're saying a line and you can't get it out, and you just keep crying with laughter and you just cannot carry on, and everyone has to stop and take a break. That's what corpsing is. I think it comes from the stage where people would do it on stage, which is really the end, and I guess it means you become a corpse. Literally, the drama is dead. I think that's what it might mean. Maybe I'm wrong, but there've been several times with Dominic where, it's usually a situation where we're very tired, usually overtired, and like Dominic's got one line to say, and I've got to say it to him, and he has to turn straight into camera, and I'm right there looking at him, and you've got to try and be, because everyone's thinking, look, it's Friday, it's about 9:30 at night, everyone wants to go home, man. They're not interested in you giggling and laughing, and we'll just lose it, and it will become hysterical, and won't be able to get through it, and that can be heavy, but we don't care because it's funny.
So, there you have it. Corpsing is, well, laughing. Which many people aren't after last week's episode, mainly because they're still sitting in shocked silence at the surprise betrayal by Michael. Here to discuss the matter further are executive producers Damon Lindelof and Carlton Hughes.
I'm going to let you go first this morning, Damon.
You just went first.
Well, no, go ahead. You go first.
But you just went first.
Okay, well then don't go first.
Hello, my name is Damon Lindelof.
Hi, I'm Carlton Hughes, and welcome to our podcast.
Another podcast.
Well, yes. So today we're going to talk about Two for the Road, which was a very dramatic episode. Was it not, Damon?
It was one of our most dramatic episodes, and, obviously, fans of the show listen to these podcasts. We actually record these podcasts sometimes before the episode is aired, so you should know that we are talking about the episode before it's actually hit the airwaves, but we're anticipating that a lot of people are probably talking about the last 3 minutes of the show, right. In which, we see Michael basically ask Anna Lucia for the gun so he can kill Henry, but then he turns the gun on her and shoots her. Is surprised by Libby, and then opens up Henry's jail cell, as it were, the armory, and turns the gun on himself and pulls the trigger. So that's sort of where we're at, and that's probably what a lot of people are talking about. But maybe we can take this opportunity to talk a little bit about Michelle, right. And Anna Lucia's character, and probably people are curious as to how and when we came to this decision to do this.
Right. I mean, I know there probably will. We anticipate there will be a lot of speculation that this has to do with her, legal issues involving having gotten a DUI in Hawaii. But in fact, when Michelle Rodriguez came in to join Lost,
and we met with her March of 2005. We were still we were shooting maybe the 17th or 18th episode of season 1 when we first met her.
Right, and when we sat down with her, the plan was that she was going to come in and do the show for one season, and we set out and created a story arc for her at that time that was a 1 season long story arc, and this is the culmination of that. And whatever else happened during the course of that year, and her personal issues that came up had nothing to do with our decision to kill her.
I remember it was because it was sort of really interesting that we were talking about midway through the season and saying, wow, we're still sticking to the plan, but then when the DUIs happened, we were saying, oh, now everybody's going to think when we actually pull the trigger, as it were, on our plan, that it was in response to that. And that actually made us think maybe we shouldn't do it. Maybe we should abandon the plan. But we sort of looked at it, we talked to Michelle, and we all decided the original plan was the best plan.
Yeah, I mean, it just felt like, at a certain point, the sort of, temporal news of these DUIs would fade away, and what would be left would be the show, and the show will live on, and all that won't ever become a part of the history of it. What will live on is the actual show itself, and we really felt that this was the best story and the best version of the story, and we, we really decided that it would not be... It would be a greater injustice to not actually do the story as that we had planned to do it. We had really, we plan out the season extremely carefully, and this was, always designed to be this sort of big kind of climactic moment that was going to launch the sort of May sweeps episodes.
Right, and also, we knew that Ana Lucia was going to be killing Shannon, and we knew that, we had this bigger story to tell involving Michael and Michael's search for Walt, and that she was going to intersect with that story. So, and then obviously, not to be cheeky or playful at all, but, that isn't to say that Ana Lucia isn't going to be in the question mark episode that airs this week,
Right.
or Libby. I mean, that episode starts, approximately 10 seconds after last week's ends. So this whole story might not have entirely played out yet, is really all I'll say.
I think that is fair to say. I think that obviously Michael's return and the fact that he has now done this, we're clearly trying to set up a lot of mystery and intrigue about what exactly is going on with Michael. And obviously, Michael's quest to get Walt back is, we've said publicly that is something which we're going to resolve by the end of the season. And I think now that whole story has been kind of colored and complicated in a way that, hopefully people are finding entertaining, but it's very much a part of our whole plan for how this story is going to play out through the rest of the episodes this season.
It's dark stuff.
It's a little dark, yeah.
But
no
this
time for joking around about you sitting here without your pants on.
Yeah, well, that maybe I should put some pants on, and then we wouldn't joke about it.
Okay.
So the question mark episode is this week's episode, and interestingly enough, although we're immediately picking up, as we said, where we left off, there's some big time Locke and Echo action going on this week, which is something I think that we as storytellers have really been looking forward to, and certainly the audience has sort of been promised. These are the two kind of mystical forces on the island, and what's been interesting over the course of season 2 is Locke, who started off in a place of sort of devout faith in the island and what it had in store for him, has gradually sort of gotten away from that and is getting more and more frustrated with what he feels his purpose is. And Mr. Echo, who we learned in the 23rd Psalm is actually sort of a warlord, pretending to be who gets mistaken for a priest at that end of the story, is actually sort of becoming more and more religious. So I'm sort of interested to see, how they are going to, talk to each other and what they talk about.
Right. It's sort of an interesting aside. The title of this episode is just the symbol question mark, not unlike Prince.
Or the movie Pi.
Exactly, or the movie Pi. This was originally the episode that Darren Aronofsky
or
was
Carlton's actual birth name, which is semicolon Q's. It's just the semicolon and Q's.
And part of the problem is
it's
that...
bizarre.
Yes, I know,
the
exactly.
WGA would not let you had to use the name Carlton for some reason.
We actually had a lot of issues about this because a lot of the TV systems in which titles have to be recorded won't accept question mark as a title. So in certain places it has to be written out as the question mark because for instance, on like some of these listing services, they can't enter it as question mark. It completely screws up all the computers. So
we wouldn't want to screw up anybody's computers.
It's kind of ironic that our title is is screwing up computers when in fact this episode has to do with the computer, doesn't it?
It is, in my opinion, the most appropriately titled episode of the show ever.
Yes.
Just in terms of,
right,
what it's about, and it, obviously we've seen the symbol of the question mark on this lock, this door that Locke was trapped under, and that's sort of what's driving things. But then there are several things that happen over the course of this episode that make you go, oh, that's why it's called question mark. Oh, that's why it's called question mark. Oh, maybe it's called question mark because of this.
Right, and it's one of the most rewarding things that we experience as writers is when we can actually kind of get that layering where the title has a lot of meaning. Of course, in the case of this title, it can basically be used as a substitute for utter confusion as well. So,
there is always
as a writer, pretty much anything we write could be,
If the episode makes no sense, that's our fallback position. We can be like, it's called question mark.
Exactly.
What were you expecting?
Reminds me of my 7th grade English teacher putting that exact mark next to certain passages and certain papers I wrote. But I don't want to get into that right now.
Yes, you
Especially
do.
when you don't have your pants
Especially when I'm
on.
not wearing pants. Right, exactly. Okay. I thought we were going to be somber today.
Oh, well, we did do the somber part.
All right. Well, can I start with the questions this
Okay,
week, Carlton?
sure.
Our favorite part. Do we still do the fanfare? Time for questions.
Are we still playing, by the way? Are we going to change that theme music out?
Apparently, there's been a lot of complaints about the theme music, the Werewolf by Night with the talking car
thing. We're working on that. We're working on those stories over the hiatus, and we hope to get back to you next season with many more details about our werewolf car show.
I'm still hoping to get some suggestions for what the title of that show might be.
Yeah, maybe you could write those in. Just any ideas you have about that show, please send them in to the website.
So, Carlton, I'd like to start by asking you a question with the subject heading socks, and this is asked by AJ Bazark. On yesterday's podcast, did I hear Damon and Carlton refer to the background survivors as socks? Where did that term come from? Guess it's kind of the lost equivalent of red shirts. But why socks?
It is actually the equivalent of red shirts, and the origin of that is what we refer to the background players as, and it's it could seem as though it was a derogatory term, but it's actually a term of great affection that we use.
It certainly is.
But it's like sock puppets. They are the people in the back who you sort of see, but they're kind of ND, nondescript.
That's right, like socks. I mean, you open up your sock drawer and there they are, and you don't really develop any specific affection for one pair or the other. I mean, I don't really spend a lot of time choosing what pair of socks I'm going to wear.
You don't?
No, not at all.
Wow, that's another difference between
as evidenced by the fact that I'm wearing brown shoes and gray socks today.
Wow.
Evidenced further by the fact that I'm not wearing pants.
This is a little bit like you not liking tomatoes and me liking tomatoes. It's just
not liking them is one way to say it. Another way to say it is hating them. And if one of them was in my mouth, it would cause me to have intestinal. I would puke essentially, but. And you love them.
I love them.
You're eating a tomato right now, like an apple.
So that's why they're called socks.
Okay.
Damon.
Yes, Carlton.
So, podcast question by Sawyer220.
Excellent.
Who's posted 119 times in the last 90 days, okay?
Alrighty then.
Around the outside...
That's almost a post a day.
Exactly. Around the outside of the Dharma symbol, there are markings that are different from each other. The other day in school... I was watching a movie about China and I saw the same markings. Do the markings around the Dharma symbol have anything to do with what I am talking about?
There is there is a connection to not the country of China, but the Chinese culture. I believe it's these are Bagua symbols, and they are elemental.
Right.
The Dharma Initiative, for whatever reason, hopefully we'll be learning about it someday, basically used fire, air, water, to build their Dharma hexagon, and in the center of every station that we would potentially discover, in the swan we see a swan, in the arrow we see an arrow. What else? We saw the sort of caduceus symbol in the medical station, but we don't know what the name of that station is.
Right. I guess we'll learn what the question mark station is.
Is it going to be a question mark?
My guess is no.
Interesting, because that would be predictable.
That would be it would be like, oh, come on.
Yeah, duh.
They have a question mark and they get there and, By the way, who would name a hatch with a question mark? Well, I guess the Dharma people are pretty.
I don't know why they called the
trippy.
station with the glass eye and at the arrow.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
there's not a
true.
lot of sense there.
That's true.
So is it my turn to ask you a question?
Oh, I
Didn't you
guess
just
it is.
ask me about the Bagua? You're already eager to ask me another one.
I know. Well, there's a lot I learn, from you in these podcasts, frankly.
Does Locke work for the government? This is from Harry Feet DB1. 252 posts in the last 90 days. That's a more respectable number. That's that's at an average of 3 posts a day.
Yeah. I like people who are obsessive.
There is no way that a few hunting trips with Dad can make Locke that good of a hunter, not to mention he was never using knives. So where'd he learn this? I remember in the episode Walkabout, he was in his office and he got a phone call saying, "Is this line secure?" So while he was crippled, who was he working for? Was it the government or could it even be the others?
Okay.
So it feels like there's a couple questions in there.
All right, can you just kind of lay back on the attitude a little bit, okay? Because I'm sensing a certain hostility in the reading of that question, and I don't know whether that's,
I'm just trying to, capture the spirit of Harry Feet DB1, who obviously, with his lack of punctuation and run-on sentences, I feel he's eager to know the answer to this question.
Well, it is.
If in fact it's a guy, I'm just going with that hunch.
Yeah, it's a good question, and the backstories in all these characters are like mosaics. We show you parts of them, and other parts are yet to come. And I think that it would be fair to say that the part of the story in which we learn how Locke got to be as proficient as he is yet to come. We did, however, see that with his father, there was in that story it was implied that he had a relationship with his dad, and during that time he learned how to hunt and shoot, and his father taught him some stuff about the outdoors before he stole his kidney. But there is more to why Locke is as proficient as he is.
Borrowed his kidney.
Yes, that's true. He could be getting it back in season 3.
That's true. He could.
So that's pretty much. And then the other part is working for the government. Well,
my recollection of Walkabout, and it was a long time ago, when he picks up the phone and says, "Is this line secure?" He's just getting a call from his buddy who he plays games with during his lunch hour. So they're goofing around. So he certainly does not work for the government or the others.
Or unless by government you mean Box Company in Tustin.
That's right.
California.
There are those who believe that the government is a box company. But I'm not one of those people, and it doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay. So, Damon.
Yes, Carlton?
On one podcast, we mentioned the Widmore Construction would be a company name to keep an eye out for. I'm not sure anyone has pointed this out yet, but the pregnancy test that Son got from Sawyer in The Whole Truth said Widmore Labs on it. Also, Kate had a line that reads something to the gist of, how did Sawyer get one of those? I mean, who carries a pregnancy test on a plane, really? Is this an Easter egg plug to the fact that the test says Widmore Labs? Are we supposed to watch out for Widmore? Is there going to be more Widmore? Is Widmore therefore connected to Dharma as well? And that further connects Oceanic Airlines to Dharma. So how does all that work, Damon?
I'm going to just say more Widmore. Not less Widmore, but more Widmore.
There will be more Widmore.
More Widmore.
Yes.
Or with less. More with less.
Right. You might want to check out the book Bad Twin, too.
Yeah. There are certainly going to be some, and obviously, I can't really be sure about this, but the name Widmore might be popping up in the finale.
It might indeed.
It's possible.
Right. I actually heard a rumor that there are 2 branches of the Widmore family.
Really?
Yes.
Their family tree, as it were?
Yes.
There'd be 2 branches?
Yes, exactly.
And
there's a British branch and an American branch.
Interesting. So they're just related, and one of them lives in the States and the other one lives in the UK?
Right.
That is. So which branch makes the pregnancy tests?
Well, I don't know. I don't think I can really say.
Is that because you don't know?
No, it's because I'm not saying.
All right, we should talk about this after the podcast, because I'd like to know. Carlton and I each keep secrets from each other, which is sort of how we get through our day.
It is actually amazing when you realize that actually we've just divided all the secrets of Lost in 2, and Damon has half of them, and I have the other half. And it's incredible when we actually learn what the other one knows about the history and secrets and mythology of Lost.
Yesterday, I told Carlton while he was eating the tomato with it like a piece of fruit. I said, Carlton, do you want to know how Locke ended up in his wheelchair? And he said, boy, would I. And
I said, I'll trade you what the monster is if you tell me what Locke was doing in that wheelchair.
So then I didn't know if I could trust Carlton, and he didn't know if he could trust me. And then we said, okay, on 3, I will say it, and then you'll tell me what the monster is. And I went 1, 2, and then Carlton didn't say anything. So
I thought you meant like 3 and then say it, not like on 3.
But it was quite obviously a ploy. So I'm going to hold on to that information for a little while longer. And I've got some theories about what the monster is.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that later.
Excellent. All right. Well, I better go. You better put down that tomato, and I better go put my pants on.
One last question.
Oh, okay. Is Michael brainwashed?
Yes.
D. Sombrio. Did the others do something to Michael's head? His face was pretty strange when he crashed in front of Jack and Kate, like an OD kind of thing. Like he was drug up. So my thinking is, are the others messing with Michael's head to make him go back to the beach and go get everybody to go after them? And by doing that, the Losties will cross the territory line, and then all the Losties get captured and put in some kind of experiment, like an underwater hatch? Am I getting lost or not? Please let me know what you guys think of this.
Oh my God, I cannot believe you would just give away the finale and read all that. The underwater hatch part. I mean, that must have leaked out.
Is that a pun? The underwater hatch leaked out? It's very clever.
Michael had a long trek back across the island. I mean, he wasn't going to walk out and go, hey, what's going on, guys?
Yeah, I know.
And then go, lost card. That wouldn't be too dramatic.
He had some brambles in his hair, too.
Yeah.
But the reality is now Michael has done what he's done, so I think it's sort of fair to assume that perhaps what he said happened while he was gone, is different than what actually happened. But it's not like will you tell me what happened to him for real?
Not a chance, because I know you won't tell me anything in return.
On 3, I will tell you, let's see, what can I tell you? I can tell you, I'll give you the Rose and Bernard love scenes if you tell me, why. What happened to Michael for reals?
Okay. Well, unfortunately, before we get to that, looks like we're out of time today.
Oh,
darn!
Rumhole.
Oh, jeez.
All
well,
right.
guys, thanks for listening
to our somber podcast.
Yes.
Stay tuned. All new Lost coming up the next 3 weeks.
All new Lost.
Oh.
Wednesday.
Thanks for letting me go first today.
You're welcome.
All right.
So we'll see you later.
Bye, gang.
That brings us to the end of this podcast. Be sure to check out abc.com, where you can submit your own fan questions and also stream this week's episode of Lost after it airs. Just go to lost.abc.com. Question Mark airs Wednesday, May 10th from 9 to 10 p.m. only on ABC.